Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Chris, and welcome back to another gaming vlog. This is where I talk about the video games that I played and give my thoughts about them, and I guess generally a vlog about what's going on with my life-ish, or at the very least, talking about what's next for me in terms of video games and all that, because I just love talking about video games, as I love talking about video games with you people. If you are in the chat and want to talk about the games that you have been playing, please feel free to talk about it in the comments down below. And of course, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content. But anyways, last I talked to you in a gaming vlog setting, I had 24 games on my 2023 list. These are the games that I beat in 2023. That number went from 24 to 37 in about a 5-week span, which is kind of wild, but here we are. Super excited to talk about some of these games today, and so as we usually do, we're going to work from the bottom up. If there's a game that I don't talk about, more than likely it's a game that I have talked about in a previous gaming vlog, so if you want to find those, you can absolutely do so. This is of course always a mix of games that you probably know about, and then probably some obscure indie games that you don't know about and probably would like to know more about, and so I want to leave as much room for many different types of games on this list. But I'm gonna be real with you, it's a lot of Kirby and a lot of Rhythm Heaven ahead, so just be prepared for that. But there's some other ones mixed in as well that we'll talk about. Let's start here, because my last video on my YouTube channel was my top 10 favorite Kirby games, specifically mainline Kirby games. And this is after I completed my run of beating all of the mainline Kirby games, because I had not done so before, and I finished it with Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby Star Allies, I should say. Yeah, Kirby Star Allies was the last game on that list, so I beat that game, and so I was completely done, and I submitted that video for you all to see. It's a top 10 of the mainline games, plus remakes. It's explained in the video. So I did talk a lot about what games I did like. I talked a little bit about the games that are lower on the list, or not on the list at all, a little bit. But to kind of double down here, so we're starting on this with our gaming recap with the bottom here of the Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby's Dream Land 3, and Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. Yeah, these are the games. These are all games that I played in the last month or so, and ultimately felt like I didn't really enjoy them as much as I was hoping I would. I did talk about Kirby 64 in the last vlog, I realized, so I won't go too deep into that. But Dreamland 2, Dreamland 3, I think they're cute games. I think they do have, generally speaking, fun mechanics, fun platforming, but it just doesn't really hit for me. And maybe it's just because it's an old game, and old games just typically don't click with me as hard as newer games do. But yeah, I just didn't really love the animal mechanics as much as I thought I would. I think that I'd be interested in how they're implemented in a future Kirby game. I'm sure they would come back at some point. But in this setting, in this presentation, I just didn't vibe with with really any of the Kirby's Dream Land games. But Kirby's Dream Land, at least the original one, spoke to me because it was a game that was, it had been replicated in Kirby Superstar, and so it's something that I'm used to and I've seen before, and I therefore very much enjoy and appreciate. But Dreamland 2 and Dreamland 3, I'm just kind of like they're fine, but they're just not memorable to me, and nor were they like that exciting either. But they're not bad. I would not go as far as that. Like, they're not bad. I still like Kirby 64 the least of all the mainline Kirby games. And originally on this list, I did have 64 ahead of Kirby's Dream Land. That did change for me. Just because the more I sit with it, the more I'm like, look, I get what Kirby 64 was trying to go for, and I think it's cool that you have, like, combining abilities, but that's not, like, exclusive to Kirby 64. Like that was in Kirby Star Allies, that was in Kirby Squeak Squad. They were in quite a few games beyond 64. So my big hang up with 64 still is just, man, that game feels like so slow. Just feels so slow to control Kirby. I just find it completely not engaging, not fun to play, because it just feels so slow. And Kirby feels heavy. Like, it just, nothing feels good. Kirby does not feel good to play as, and Kirby has always felt slow over the course of the franchise. This is, to me, it stands out, and in a bad way. So yeah, that's just my continuing thoughts on those. But I've talked about the other two. I've talked about 64 before. I've talked about Kirby's Dream Land before. But two and 3 Dreamland, like, again, they're fine. I think it's weird. I did like Dreamland 2 a little bit more overall, despite it not having nearly as many animals to play with. I think my biggest things for Dreamland 2 though is like, all right, the music can sometimes get repetitive if you're using the same animals over and over, because there's like a specific theme that plays for specific animals, that when there's only 3 animals, you hear the same theme over and over and over again. Music generally is just not the Dreamlands 2 like strongest aspect, and again, just kind of forgettable levels. But I think I like the gameplay a lot more than Dreamland 3, which I think is more artistically pretty, but overall just fine. Yeah, that's it's harsh. It's a harsh opinion. I recognize that, but just how I feel at the moment. All right, let's talk about, we've talked about Luckhead all the way through a minute before. So if you want, go back into previous vlogs to hear my thoughts on those. So then let's talk about Blanc. Blanc, of course, is a new game, a co-op game that you play. It's 2 players. I believe you can play online or locally. And this is a game that I had been looking forward to. I loved the art style a lot. And I was figuring out, like, okay, when will I end up playing this game? And Blanc ended up being Blanc ended up being something that I was over my sister's house, and she was just like, hey, do you have a game that we could play together? And I thought about it. I was like, oh, actually, Blanc would be an interesting one. So we played that, and we had a good time. It's not an amazing game by any stretch. It's definitely, like, it doesn't blow you away. I think if anything's gonna blow you away about this game, it's gonna be the art. But like the story and what happens in the story is not like, it's fine. Like, it's nothing that's crazy. There is some like kind of traumatizing moments that happen in this game. Nothing devastating, but enough where you walk away from it like, why did they do this? Like, why did they make some of these decisions to make you feel really sad? For even if it's just for a brief moment, you know? And that's just trying to give us as spoiler free as possible. And not that you can't like evoke emotions and stuff like that, but it just it felt unnecessary to the story that they're wanting to tell. I guess I was really expecting more out of the story. Weirdly, I was expecting more in terms of understanding what was going on, because I feel like when it was all said and done, you kind of walked away like, okay, cool, bye. Like, but I still give this game, like, on a 5-point scale, I still would give this a 4 out of 5, because I do think the gameplay itself is a lot of fun. I enjoyed that what my favorite thing about co-op games is if each player has their own individual experience, where then when you go ahead and play it with someone else, or if you decide to play it again, you could switch characters and have like at least a little bit of a different experience. It's not like It Takes Two or Operation Tango, that were like those games, like those are like you end up having vastly different experiences depending on who you play as, but it's still like, oh, okay, like, it's cool. Like, you have like the deer is kind of like the tall one, so it could help like help the little fox or dog like be like a stool to the dog to kind of like help him up, or the wolf fox, whatever it is. and then like the wolf, it can like bite into ropes and like unlock things like that. So like you each have your own utility that you can hold on to. It's a delightful game, and I think the best mechanic of this game is the fact that you can slide down hills. Kelsey absolutely used that to her advantage and completely found every opportunity to slide down things to the point that it delayed us beating the game. I didn't really care, but I thought it was just really funny that it just all of a sudden we would just be walking forward and I would just see her veer off the path, and I knew exactly like, oh, you're gonna slide down the hill, aren't you? So yeah, it's a delight. It's a delightful game. It's not gonna blow you away, but if you need a co-op game that's like short and sweet, it's good, pretty good. All right, let's talk about Rhythm Tengoku. This is the very first Rhythm Heaven game. Yes, basically since my last video, I have played the entirety of the Rhythm Heaven franchise, which is kind of nuts, but yes, I did it, and I don't regret it. It was a lot of fun to go back. I played Rhythm Tengoku, which was a Japan exclusive game, and so there is an English port, but it's like you in order to download it, you need to have like a software to patch your ROM and that stuff like that. There's just like it's probably not that complicated, but I just didn't want to take the time to do it. The game is very playable for English only speakers, for people who only know, or for anyone of any language. Like, if you don't know Japanese, you'll be fine. Like, it's a lot of context clues. It's a lot of like trying to understand like what generally they might be saying, but like, you know, it's all of language is just sounds. So if you just know what sounds they're making to indicate certain actions, you're good. And I think this game does a good job of that. It's a very fun game, and I think that I think that it's a weird one. I feel like while the other three Rhythm Heaven games lived up to having moments that are like, oh man, this is so much fun, because now you hit these remixes and you're playing all these mini games that you just played, and it's called culminating in this like massive remix that's so much fun with great music in the background. This game has great music, but I think it kind of falters near the end in like the post game, where Rhythm, like, at what you do Remix 6 is basically the equivalent of like the final remix that isn't all the other Rhythm Heaven games. After that, you do get like sequels to games, which is typical to any Rhythm Heaven game, and then you get remixes that I think kind of just keep on rehashing the same games over and over and almost to a point where like they start like slowing down the tempo near the end, and then it kind of just feels like you wrap up the game and it's kind of lands with a thud to me. Whereas there's something so exciting about getting to like the final remixes and all these games and blowing through all these mini games and kicking butt in all of them and nailing all the timing and stuff. Where this one it's just not that fun to play near the end. And so I think that's one of my biggest hang-ups with Rhythm Tengoku. But a lot of great games, and a lot of ones that I think there's only like one game that I feel like I'm like, okay, I could see where this might not be ported into a future Rhythm Heaven game. See, I say that, but then I'm like, I don't know. There's one Rhythm game in there where you have like these three, like a red girl, a blue boy, and a yellow person, and the three of them are standing on like the A button, the B button, and like the directional pad, and you are basically playing volleyball with them, where they bounce the ball, and where the ball is going, you have to hit that corresponding button. I was gonna say like that maybe that wouldn't work in a future Rhythm Heaven just because of the layout, but I'm like, well, no, that layout is kind of in every single Rhythm Heaven, or at the very least in the newer games like A and B and directional pad, like those things are all there. So I there's so many of these games that I'm like, man, they could have ported this, because there's some really good ones in the mix there. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I just think compared to what Rhythm Heaven has become, I don't think it gets close to that. I think there's definitely enough there's enough flaws for me where I'm like, one thing I'm going to speak on this one and Rhythm Heaven DS is I find that these games are very strict. If you get like one or two mistakes, they're going to say, you did okay, see you later. They're not like, they are not easy to grade with. And so I that kind of annoys me a bit. Not that I don't need these things to be easy, but it's more the frustration of like, okay, well then if I did okay, what should I do better? Like, how do I get better? How much did I fail? Things like that. Like it to me, those are things that I think improved as the Rhythm Heaven series went on. And so yeah, there we go. Let's talk about Kirby Star Allies now. Because we did talk about Kuruin, I believe, in the last vlog, or a couple of vlogs ago. So Kirby Star Allies I think is understandably not a beloved Kirby game, but I think it kind of gets maligned in a way that is a little unfair. Yes, this game is really easy, but I think there's a lot of cool set pieces in this game that I enjoyed. I think this game's worst sin is just that they reuse so much Kirby music from past games instead of making its own soundtrack, which I think that's a bit of a bummer. But I don't know. I liked the ally mechanics in this game. I liked being able to kind of combine abilities in this game where, you know, an ally would like light your hammer on fire, or your sword would turn to ice or whatever. Like those things were really cool. It's cool to solve puzzles in the game, but yeah, I think compared to any other Kirby game, it's definitely not as memorable one as compared to others. And I think definitely a step down from what I think was looking back at it now, a stellar. Would it be a duology? Does it have a trilogy? I don't know. But anyways, like the Triple Deluxe and Pyro Robot were incredible games, and so for Star Allies to come out and be like, all right, it's fine. Like that's, to me, is a bit of a bummer. I will say though, like I did a little bit of research, I think ahead of time, in terms of my Kirby rankings and stuff, and Star Allies is surprisingly high on some people's lists, and I'm like, I don't know if I would go that far to say it's a top 5 series, but some people are out there that would say so, and I'm like, all right, cool. I don't know. I there's a lot of bright spots in this game. It's just not the best. It's not where Kirby should be, and I think a lot of our, a lot of our concerns about the franchise. I think a lot of it was quelled with Forgotten Land. Though, again, as I talked about in the top 10 Kirby video, that game also has so much room to improve. But that's kind of what makes it so exciting to me about the future of Kirby. Okay, Mon Cage, we talked about Birth, we talked about Storyteller. Man, we have not talked about Storyteller on here? Well, I don't have to. You can go watch my video. This is one of the Let's Plays that I've done on my channel. So you should go ahead and watch it. But long story short, great. This was a short story, actually. A very short game. And unfortunately got a lot of review bombs. Is that the phrase that people review bombed Storyteller because of how short it was, and people felt like the lack of content, and that maybe the demo version of the game was a little bit more exciting versus the long form. I don't get that, to be honest with you. I felt like the game's mechanics kind of worked very similarly between, the demo and the full version of the game. But maybe I just need someone to point that out to me as to what maybe the major difference was. I think a lot of people were hoping for a little bit more customization in terms of the storytelling. I don't know. I think for what they wanted to go for, I think they nailed it, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think I'm banking on the idea that they might add more content in the future. At least I believe that's what they have said, that they want to look to add more content, but I'm not. I don't know if that's like a locked in thing at this point, so we'll see. But I would play more Storyteller. That's like the highest compliment that I can give. Like I would play more because it was a lot of fun. I very much enjoyed my time with that game. Let's talk about Mail Time because this was I feel very disappointed in. I want to say it was my computer. It might be the fact that this game's not optimized though. Mail Time's launch feels a little bit rocky, at least on PC. A lot of bugs, a lot of issues kind of marred the game for me. But also very specifically, like, and maybe it is just my computer because I haven't seen anyone talk about it. Graphical issues. But if you missed me attempting to stream this game, I wanted to stream it this past weekend and unfortunately could not do it. After a while, I got through a good chunk of the game before I decided to give up, and that video is not going to end up. If you're seeing this right when this comes out, you might be able to catch like the VODs of me trying, restarting and starting the stream again. But it's not worth it. I had to turn down so many different settings. I had to really make this game not look as good as it could have been. And I just kept on having my graphics card just kept on restarting and therefore screwing with OBS, screwing with the stream, and that ultimately ended up being a major issue, and that ended up hurting my ability to put out a video in its full form. It could be just my side, but I think that this game ended up being. It definitely still has a little bit of room to get better in terms of bugs and stuff, which the developer is working on. They actually posted a patch, I think, right before I went live, and I don't think I updated the game in time for that. So that's all worth noting right now. That they're working on. They're gonna work on getting it better, and we'll see what this game looks like. It feels like. By September. But I'm saying all this knowing full well that I still have this game at number 17 on this list because I really loved Mail Time. I thought for what it is a delightful romp. If you enjoy the exploration platformer, which is what I would describe a Short Hike and Little Gator game, those types of games are just my bag. I love these games. The games where you just run around, you're interacting with characters, you're collecting things. It's just an absolute blast to play them, and I think Mail Time does a pretty good job. I think putting aside bug issues, I think this game doesn't play around with its platforming as much as I would have liked. I think again naming I know I'm naming a Short Hike and Little Gator game, which to me are masterpieces, but when I think about those games where they have the climbing mechanics along with gliding mechanics, and then with the Little Gator game, and on top of that they have like a shield that you can slide down things, and there's a lot of different ways in which movement is a massive part of those games, and they utilize it well. Mail Time is much more about getting to the destinations than the journey in some ways, and that I think hurts it in that way. It is still a gorgeous map to explore. The writing's fantastic. The characters are so much fun. And I had a great time with it. Like, when it was all said and done, I was pretty happy. Though I do have a little bit of a gripe with the fact that I could not 100% the game because there was a quest that was glitched for me, but I still wanted to beat the game. And so then I beat the game, but then I was not able to go back into my save to complete the quest that I couldn't complete at the time because it was bugged. And the only reason I couldn't do that is because I kept on logging back into the game, and it would start me in during like the end game portion where like I can't like escape. And that was a little bit of a bummer. I wish there was an option to beat the game and then continue with your save and then, you know, continue to complete the quest if you missed any. But to be honest, I'm actually kind of cool with the idea of playing this a couple months from now, maybe a year from now, and fully beating it one more time, and hoping that I won't have as many bugs associated with that, and any like, you know, game-breaking glitches that happen in terms of you know, quests not working for me. Hopefully that is also fixed, and then therefore I will be able to fully complete the mail time journey and be able to have a more of a solid verdict on the game. But for now, I still think it's great. I again fall short of true greatness, but it's still a great time. If you love a good old it's very much a fetch quest game. If you love fetch quests, this is the game. And along with the fact that it does have a fun exploration mechanic of just, yeah, you go around this forest that's like massive in comparison to you and the animals that you interact with. All right. So what's next on this list? I feel like I have quite a bit still to talk about. All right. So next up is Chia. I feel like Chia, I don't want to necessarily talk too much about Chia because I already did on oh wait, no, I did not. I did the 1 hour of Chia as a video, but I did not actually stream Chia. Huh. Oh, okay. So let's talk about it then. Chia, to me, in comparison to Mail Time, does play around with movement in a very fun way. Specifically with the ability, like the capture ability that essentially Chia has in the game, where you are. This is also what I would describe as an exploration platformer. That is a bit of like that is a little bit more of like a sinister side to it, but generally is very also has a lot of wholesome aspects to it as well. But Chia has this capture mechanic where you could basically possess everything. You could possess objects, you could possess animals. You can't possess humans, although you can possess a human hand. That's besides the point. Chia, to me, I had a lot of fun with the post game. After beating this game, I was disappointed with the way the story went. I felt like it got so unhinged in a way, and so many big time plot twists left me just kind of like, okay, that's weird. Like, granted, like major like science fiction plot twists typically are a turnoff for me. I think a great example of that in recent times is Horizon Forbidden West. Is that game? I loved Horizon Zero Dawn, and then Forbidden West came out, and I really hated the direction that they went with that story. I'm a minority on that, but I that's how I feel. I don't think they did a good job with the story in that game compared to Zero Dawn. Just me. But this game felt in a similar vein to that when it was all said and done. I felt like I was disappointed in the direction it went. It got really, really weird, and I was just kind of like meh about it at the end. But then I 100%ed the game. I worked on doing the platinum because I was like, you know what, I do enjoy exploring the island of New Caledonia, and I want to like hit all the checkpoints, clear everything else out that I haven't done yet, and fully platinum this game. And I did, and I fell back in love with Chia in that way. I think that this is another game that I would still, on a 4-point scale or a 5-point scale, I'd give a 4 out of 5. But I think maybe skews closer to an 8 than a 7 on a 10-point scale, if that makes sense. Anyways, that's all nonsense. Bottom line is, I enjoyed this game for the sheer gameplay aspect of it. I think it's so much fun to explore the island, do all the different activities on it. I loved the collectathon aspect of the game in terms of getting items, but there's also a lot of fun challenges involved as well, with, you know, slingshots and then or just races in general. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff in this game that I think generally did they did a very good job in terms of its presentation. The music of the state game is so freaking good. Just there's a lot of good vibes with this game. I just think it got overshadowed a bit with a story that was fucking wild when it was all said and done. It was just like, oh wow, they went places with this game. Just really weird pacing, really weird idea. I mean, look, I also will say that there might be some aspects of the story that I don't understand, but I may also just be ignorant to if that is based off of like a real life mythology or a real life, like if there's anything that if there's something that is like a that is, if any of the stuff in the story is based off of something in real life, I would not be privy to that. So so that's the only reason why I look at that. I'm like, this is very strange to me. But that's just my take on it. But again, in terms of the story, or in terms of the gameplay, had an absolute blast. It was a lot of fun, and also the ukulele powers that you get, where you could strum on the ukulele, and like certain powers would happen, kind of like how Zelda has, you know, the ocarina, and you type in certain notes in order for that to have an effect. Like a very similar thing here with Chia. I thought they had a lot of really cool powers, some of which I wish I had a lot earlier than when I actually retrieved them. Part of me wishes that was more getting those music, those individual pieces of music. I wish that kind of was part of the main story, so that way during the post game I had all those things readily available to me. But I digress. Let's talk about Rhythm Heaven DS, or Rhythm Heaven Gold, as it's referred to in Japan. So this is a game that I've had quite the journey with. This was my first Rhythm Heaven game. This was my only Rhythm Heaven game for quite some time. And it was a game that I really struggled getting into. I found it to be quite difficult. I was not into the idea of using a stylus to time things correctly. And generally speaking, I'm still not. I think that the biggest reason why this game is so much lower to me compared to Fever and Megamix is that I did find the gameplay to be kind of agonizing at times. There's a good handful of games in this collection, because that's what Rhythm Heaven is. Ultimately, it's a collection of mini games. So many, I don't want to say so many, but there's quite a few mini games in Rhythm Heaven DS that I just straight up did not enjoy. And I really, I also again talk about how it was super at times very, very strict, to the point where it was extremely frustrating trying to push myself to try to do anything, try to get like a superb, or try to get or even perfect. I mean, forget it. I barely even try to do any perfects with this game, because I just was like, I'm not good enough for this. I don't think it's a bad game by any stretch. I think it is a great game. Once again, they have an amazing soundtrack to this game. There are games that are genuinely a blast to play, so many of which I've already experienced in some capacity thanks to Megamix, at least after the fact. But coming back to this game after beating Fever, after beating Megamix, like, I have such a newfound appreciation for it, and I do genuinely love it. Like, I wish I loved it as much as the other two, but I respect it for what it is, and I think the more there is a part of me, even though I kind of said on Twitter that I was just kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever really go back to this game in earnest. That's probably still true, but there is a part of me that also wants to still get better at using a stylus with these type of games. Like I with Megamix, I'm trying to like use the stylus to kind of beat try to get some of the perfects, or play some of the challenges or anything like that. Like, using the stylus has definitely been a weak spot for me, but I've gotten better with it, and I I think that if I do that, maybe I will go back to Rhythm Heaven DS and replay some of these games, and maybe I'll realize, oh, some of these are not as hard as I really found them to be initially. But I have an appreciation for the entire franchise, and this game is incredibly special. Like when I talked about where I felt like Tengoku kind of I think it kind of doesn't live up to the moment in terms of its remix, except for there was a couple of remixes that were fantastic. Then I think near the end it didn't really like hit its peak like I wish it did. This game is quite Rhythm Heaven DS is quite the opposite. Like Remix 8 is incredible. Like that's not even the finale remix. Like that Remix 8 is something else. Like it's generally, it seems a lot more daunting when you just watch it, but when you're in it, you kind of get used to it a lot quicker. And again, so much fun, so exciting, so weird. I love it dearly. So yeah, very, very, very good. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, that is a game, that is a full video that you could go watch on my YouTube channel. Long story short, I very much loved this game. It is my favorite Sonic game. That's because I haven't really played many Sonic games. Or, I've only played Sonic Mania, and Sonic Mania was very brief. I don't know if I'll ever, like, fully understand and get Sonic. But I do love the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. I love these characters, man. And I love that this is the Sonic social team, their interpretation of these characters. But I kind of wish that these were the characterizations and the story writing that happens in the other Sonic games. And maybe that is the case, and someone can tell me otherwise. But this, I just really, really loved how these characters were presented in this game, and all the weird shenanigans that this group ended up with. It made me fall in love with Tails as a character. Like, I know that, again, it's not necessarily like Sega's storyboard writers, he's the Sega social team's writers, but they just, I just love his energy. I love I love Tails. I think he's just presented very well in this game. And again, so many great moments throughout. I think my only hang-up was the platforming moments. But they did a good job of making it as accessible as possible to people. Like if they didn't want to stick with the main settings, to turn things down so that way you can power through the rest of it. That ended up working out for me. I ended up flying through the rest of the playthrough. Yeah, it was a delight. It's an absolute delight, and I highly recommend it for people who love Sonic in any capacity, or who just like a fun, stupid little murder mystery. It's not very deep in terms of its murder mystery mechanics, I will say. Like, it is very straight to the point. They kind of like, yeah, click around a little bit, and then we'll do the interrogation, and you just there's not like a lot of puzzle solving in this game, and maybe that's the only major gripe that I would have with it. All right, so we now can do, as you can see, I feel like I rearranged a lot of this list now that I'm looking at it more. Definitely some changes in terms of order. I actually only have a couple of games to still talk about. I only have 3 here. Let's talk about Mr. Saito real quick, because that's a game that I did also do a YouTube Let's Play on, and you should go watch it. It is one of my favorite video game stories that I've experienced, and this is based in the universe of Rikuen, which is a game from the same developer that I had not played, but is far more devastating than this game, and therefore I have not played it yet. But Mr. Saito is a delight, while also having some commentary on the grind of capitalism, ultimately. And you know, sometimes it's nice to kind of get away in a silly world, like the one in Mr. Saito. Just absolutely love the characters in this game. So much joy poured into it. Like, every moment felt so silly, but also earned, and a lot of great emotional beats as well that I think really got me. If you watch the video, I had a lot of trouble trying to close out that video when it was all said and done. But a feel good game ultimately, and I think we all owe it to ourselves to have some feel good in our lives every once in a while. And Mr. Saito, I think, does such a good job of that. It is definitely right behind Hi-Fi Rush on my game of the year talk right now in terms of 2023 games. It is right behind Hi-Fi Rush. I don't know if it'll pass it or if I don't know. I just can't imagine it not being on my top 10 when it's all said and done. Like I think it is that stellar of a game. It is very. I thought about like how I would rate this game, because initially I was like, you know what, the gameplay itself is a little simple, so I don't know if I would want to grade this. Like I don't know if I would give this a full 5 out of 5. But then I thought about it and I was just like, I like walking sims. I like Stanley Parable and What Remains of Edith Finch. And granted, those play around with different game mechanics at times, but like those were simple in nature as well. If you tell a good story, even with a simple gameplay mechanic, you could win my heart over. And I think that Mr. Saito did that like completely. So I love this game. And I had it was so much fun, and I'm super glad that we that I was able to share that experience on YouTube. Again, go ahead and watch it. It is a lot of fun. All right, 2 more games, 2 big ones. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. I finally beat it. I've played this game since I first got the Game Boy Advance. It might be one of my first Game Boy Advance games. And I never made it far enough in this game. I mostly got stuck on Queen Bean, that boss fight that you would have to face in the castle. And that's the farthest I've ever made it. I had a lot of struggle generally with this game. But with the help of Nintendo Switch Online and Rewind and stuff like that, just being upfront, like that stuff is definitely helpful for someone who's impatient, as I am. It made the game flow a lot better, and I very much love this game. Mario and Luigi RPGs and Paper Mario RPGs, they just do such a phenomenal job of bringing the world of Mario so much more to life than even the platforming games do. And don't get me wrong, like, the platformers are incredible. Like, those are great games. But to have these characters actually bring out their personalities is, I think, just what makes Mario Luigi Superstar Saga that much more exciting, that much more thrilling of an adventure, because you feel more invested in the game in a way, because you have these characters that you're interacting with, these characters that you want to protect in general, and they make the villains so much more endearing as well. Generally, I mean, is Kakaletta endearing? Probably not. Fawful, he's an asshole. But but I meant like more broadly in general. Yeah, I don't really have a ton to say about this. Like, I think there's so many great character moments in this game. Actually, I should say, like, we talked about Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga on the Gaming Coop, our recent podcast episode of the Gaming Coop. You should go listen to that if you're not subscribed to the Gaming Coop. Follow us on Twitter at the Gaming Coop, and it's on Anchor or Spotify it's on Spotify and iTunes. Look it up, the Gaming Coop. It should be on there. Our latest episode is all about Mario, and we close that podcast episode talking about Mario Luigi Superstar Saga. So I've already really talked about in detail why I love so much about this game, but yeah, it's hilarious. It's a great game story wise. It's a great game in terms of characters and its writing, and the gameplay is great. But I do think that, like, as much as I'm like 5 out of 5, incredible masterpiece, holy shit, I would say like the gameplay is typically not really what I come to that game for. It's interesting and fun, and I think it's cool how they implement like the the dodging mechanics in the turn-based combat, and how each boss is so different mechanically from the other. Like they do a really good job with that stuff, and I think that should be commended. But that's not what the bread and butter of this game to me is. Like the bread and butter is the story, the world, and all that. And I saw something so fucking brilliant the other day, and I want to say it was either the Gamer or Game Rant, but someone wrote about how they think that the next Super Mario 3D game, if they were to do an Odyssey 2, that they should consider doing a Bing Bing Kingdom, which is the setting of Mario and Luigi's Superstar Saga. And I was just like, holy fucking shit, that is brilliant. That is such an awesome idea to try to execute. Like, it's not like they have weird copyright issues with this game. This is Alpha Dream, which no longer exists, but ultimately this is Nintendo's IP. They own the rights to Bing Bing Kingdom. They can absolutely utilize it and bring it back. Like, Superstar Saga is a beloved video game. It's not maybe the most popular of the Mario games, but people love it. How cool would it be to get a 3D Mario game set in Bing Bing Kingdom with all the various great areas that were in that game? Like, oh man, I would fucking love that. That would be incredible. Like, what if they did Bowser's Fury? What if they did Bowser, like, they were testing something like Bowser Fury. What if they did, like, the Bowser Fury-like game? But instead of being in that lake, that, like, lap cat, right? Instead, it's Bing Bing Kingdom. It's a much bigger map, and Mario is just exploring every fucking inch of it in a 3D Mario game. How fucking insane and incredible would that be? Like, I would love that. That's, like, whoever wrote that up, whatever publication it was, I wish I could remember right now, but you're a fucking genius. That would be incredible. I would love that. Alright. Now, let's talk Rhythm Heaven Fever. And I've already talked so much about Rhythm Heaven in this vlog, but just to kind of further emphasize here, Rhythm Heaven Fever, Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix is my favorite Rhythm Heaven game. But if I were to sit here and be like, what is the best Rhythm Heaven game? It probably is Fever. It is the most polished. It is the most straightforward. I think it is more forgiving overall compared to past Rhythm Heaven games. Though I wish it had as much of an onboarding process as Mega Mix did. But Fever I thought was just an absolute joy. From start to finish. I think there's so many of the games you like, for me, I already played through Mega Mix, but to see the remixes in this game, to experience the remixes and their different styles that they have, and oh my god, the music in Fever is so good. It's so incredible. Like, almost every single minigame has a great song to it, but like Remix 8, Remix 9, those two just back to back are masterpieces in terms of music. Remix 3, where it's like it sounds like a fucking Kelly Clarkson song, but it's incredible. It's so good. Nothing against Kelly Clarkson. I do like her music. I'm just saying, like, it's the fact that it has a very similar sound to it. Like, I don't know, like, and then Remix 10 is probably the best in this franchise, maybe. Well, actually, no, Final Remix and Mega Mix is really good because of like how it kind of combines the different like eras of Rhythm Heaven in like during different segments and stuff. But Remix 10 still in Fever is very fun, very good, a perfect culmination of all the games put together. Yeah, it's really good. It's a really, really good game. And I don't know, there is this part of me that's like, man, maybe Fever is my favorite. But I think Mega Mix, there's so much depth to Mega Mix in terms of different things you could do in that game that I feel like I just enjoy more. I do think it is the perfect collection of and celebration of Rhythm Heaven. But again, if we're just talking just isolated, like, what is the best rhythm heaven game? It might be Fever. It is that great of an experience, and I'm hopeful that if we ever get a rhythm heaven again, that we get something that is more like Fever, with some Mega Mix stuff mixed in there, especially with terms of the ease of play in the beginning, maybe a little bit more approachable, and include stuff like Challenge Land, include the ability to feed a goat. You know, that's a fun aspect of Mega Mix. And include, like, if you want to continue doubling down on bringing stuff back forward, like other mini games that have not been brought forward since they were first debuted. Like, it would be cool to see those games brought into a new Rhythm Heaven, whatever it is. But yeah, just Fever's fantastic. Super happy with that. I did have some technical issues trying to get it to run on my Wii, totally on my Wii and not on anything else. But after figuring those, so I was really worried that I was not going to even be able to finish or play Rhythm Heaven Fever. I'm very happy that I was able to. I was able to figure out what the biggest issue was with that game. But yeah, it's real good. It's really good. So there's that. What's the future hold for me in terms of other games? Good question. At this point, I mean, look, I think console games, I would love to stream and do more with console games than PC games at this point. I think I haven't done a lot of PC gaming in terms of streaming thus far this year, and generally when I've had with, like, especially with Murder the Sonic Hedgehog and Mr. Saito, hasn't been an issue, but mail time was a major issue, and I'm worried that other PC games might. So I'm hoping that, next month, what is in the works for next month, actually? That's a good question. Let's open up, I have a release schedule. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's coming out. But so this Thursday coming up is the release of Case of the Golden Idol, which is or Case of the Golden Idol DLC, I should say, which is one of my favorite games of 2022. One of my favorite games ever, to be honest. And it's coming out with DLC this week, so I might end up filming that and recording that. That's going to be on PC. Hopefully, I won't have as many issues as Mail Time did. I would imagine not. It's not that heavily intensive of a game. There's a lot of pixels in that game, though, and that kind of was a problem with 2D and Top D. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful that it's something I can easily stream or record or in some capacity. I'd love to do a deep recording of that for YouTube. But then later in the month we have Humanity, which I'm going to play on PlayStation. Lego 2K Drive. If I get that, I don't know for sure if I'm going to get that yet, but if that ends up being something that people widely love, that's something I might check out. I might play on a stream or two. I know Sunrise Shuffle is coming soon, which I'm looking forward to, from Strange Scaffold. Yeah, a lot of May seems like it's going to be a fun month. And so we'll see about in terms of what I want to do. I think, generally speaking, I want to do weekly videos. Whatever that ends up being, however that ends up being presented as, we'll see. Like, I figured that this, like next week will be the Case of the Golden Idol. Maybe the following week, if I don't have anything specific, I might do another top 10, and then come, I don't know, I think the next week would have one of those games released. I would do like a Humanity stream or something. Humanity, by the way, from the Resident Infinite devs, it's that game that has like a bunch of humans that you're trying to track in a specific direction. It's been heavily advertised by PlayStation as of late, and is coming out in the middle of May. So looking forward to that. And no, I am not playing Tears of the Kingdom. Sorry, that's not Zelda's not my thing. It's one of those games that just has not hit for me. But if I'm ever going to play a Zelda game, it's probably gonna be one of the 2D top down ones that seem easier to wrap my mind around versus like an open world, intimidating environment that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing and how I'm gonna do it. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, that's how I feel when playing Breath of the Wild or any major Zelda game at this point. So we'll see. But no Tears of the Kingdom content for me. Anyways, folks, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.